Welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the book, Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. Have you read this
But
one?
I have. It's such a touching book, isn't it? It really gets you thinking about life and, loss and how important it is to stay connected with people.
Yeah, definitely. So for those who haven't read it, it's a memoir by Mitch Albom, who's this like busy sports columnist, right? And he reconnects with his old college professor, Morrie Schwartz, who is battling ALS.
And their weekly visits, which always happen on Tuesdays, they kind of become these life lessons almost. Maury's sharing all this wisdom with Mitch, his perspective on everything.
Totally. It's like you're right there in the room with them, listening to these really intimate conversations about love, family, even like the meaning of life and death too, of course.
What I find really interesting is how Maury decides to make his dying process, like his final project, he calls it narrating the trip between life and death. And he even has a living funeral, like celebrating life while he's still alive.
Right. That living funeral thing, it really makes you rethink how we usually deal with death, doesn't it? It's almost like Maury's saying, hey, let's not avoid talking about this. Let's celebrate life and connection while we still can.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And it goes back to this theme in the book about how we choose to respond to challenges in life. Maury, even though his body is failing, he chooses to face everything with dignity and even humor, and he really appreciates every moment.
Exactly. Which is a big lesson for all of us, no matter what we're going through. We always have a choice in how we respond.
Mm.
Maury focuses on connection, on love, on the things that bring him joy.
And that makes you think about your own priorities, right?
Oh,
How
yeah.
you deal with tough stuff. Are you letting fear and negativity win? Or are you choosing to focus on what really matters?
Definitely. And this leads us to what I think is at the heart of Maury's message, that human connection is so important. He keeps stressing how powerful love is, family, community. He wants us to create a subculture of love and support.
And that idea of creating a subculture, it might sound a bit abstract, so maybe we should explain it a little. Basically, Maury's saying you don't have to accept the values that society tries to force on you. You can make your own circle, choose your own values based on what truly matters to you.
Right. It's about deciding for yourself what success means, what happiness is, what a fulfilling life looks like. You're not letting other people define those things for you. And it starts with, really paying attention to your relationships, the people you spend your time with. Are they part of that subculture of love and support that you're building?
That's a really good question for everyone to think about. Like, take a moment to consider the people in your inner circle. Do they lift you up, challenge you to grow, or do they bring you down and make you feel bad?
Yeah, that's important. And this reminds me of another big theme, mentorship. Maury isn't just Mitch's professor. He's like his life coach, guiding him through these huge questions about life and death and everything.
Thinking back on my own life, I can definitely point to mentors who had a big impact on me. People who helped me see things differently or encouraged me to go after my dreams.
Me too. And it shows you, how much we can influence each other. We can guide each other and leave a real mark on the people around us.
Yeah, and it's never too late to find a mentor or to become one for someone else.
Absolutely. And speaking of finding inspiration, if you're really enjoying these ideas about self-discovery and personal growth, you should check out the Affirmified Journey YouTube channel. They have a lot of really good content that aligns with what we're talking about.
Now, going back to Morrie and Mitch, one thing that really struck me is Morrie's perspective on dying. He doesn't deny it or freak out about it. He accepts it. He even finds humor in it, which is amazing.
I know, right? He's
Yeah.
very honest about what's happening to his body.
Hmm.
But he doesn't let the fear of death take over.
And that's such a powerful lesson in itself. We all know death is a natural part of life.
Mm.
And Morrie's approach makes you think about how you want to face your own mortality. Do you want to spend your remaining time scared and regretful? Or do you want to find peace and acceptance?
Big questions. But they're worth thinking about.
Yeah.
And it ties back to Maury's idea that we should live with intention, make the most of the time we have and focus on what truly matters.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where his life lessons become really practical and helpful. He talks about detaching from emotions, forgiving yourself and others, rejecting those fake values that society pushes on us. He talks about finding meaning in giving back and connecting with others.
It's almost like he's created this roadmap for figuring out life and finding happiness, even when things are tough.
Definitely. And that's what makes this book so powerful and relatable, I think. It speaks to that desire we all have for meaning, for connection, for a sense of purpose, no matter how old we are or what our situation is.
Absolutely. And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to go deeper into some of these specific life lessons that Morrie teaches and look at how we can apply them to our own lives.
Welcome back. As we keep looking at the wisdom in Tuesdays with Morrie, I bet you're already thinking about your own life, right? And how Morrie's ideas connect with your own experiences.
Yeah, totally. One thing that really stuck with me is this whole concept of creating your own culture. Like,
Yeah.
you get to decide what your values are, and then you build a life that reflects that instead of just doing what everyone expects you to do.
And what's so cool is Morrie, he actually lives that out, right? Even though he's stuck at home, he creates this space that's full of love, connection. He's still thinking and talking about interesting things. He doesn't let being sick define his whole
Like
experience.
he's curated his own little world, like you said, a subculture, something that feeds his soul.
Maybe something to think about for yourself, too. What kind of subculture are you creating? What are those values, those principles that guide your decisions and your relationships?
That's a good one. Are you spending time with people who support you and want you to grow? Or are you letting outside pressure and expectations control your life?
And this ties into Morrie's idea about detaching from emotions. He doesn't say you should ignore your feelings or pretend they're not there. It's more like experience them fully, really acknowledge them, and then let them go.
Which can be tough,
Yeah.
especially these days when everyone's telling you to avoid anything uncomfortable. But Morrie thinks that if you lean into your feelings instead of running away from them, you actually understand yourself better. And you can move through those emotions more easily.
It's true. Think about a time you tried to push away a feeling you didn't like. Did it work? I bet it came back later, maybe even stronger. What Morrie's saying is be present with your emotions.
Hmm.
See them without judging them. Let them flow through you like, waves in the ocean.
I like that. And it applies to any emotion, right? Happiness, sadness, anger, whatever you're feeling. It's about being more aware of your emotions and accepting them.
Definitely. And then there's another big lesson about forgiveness. Morrie believed that holding on to grudges, all that resentment, it just hurts you in the long run. He wants us to forgive ourselves for mistakes and to forgive the people who hurt us.
Strong message. But man, it can be so hard to do, especially if someone's really wronged you. But the way Morrie explains it, it's not about saying what the other person did was okay.
Yeah.
It's about freeing yourself from that anger and resentment that's eating you up inside.
And he knows what he's talking about. He tells this really touching story about his relationship with his dad. It was really strained. But he eventually found a way to forgive him.
Powerful stuff.
Uh,
Showed you that everyone makes mistakes. And forgiving someone is a gift you give yourself as much as you give it to them. It's letting go of the past so you can move on.
so true. And it leads us to another big theme, accepting that we're all going to die someday. The way Morrie faces death with dignity and grace, it's incredible, really inspiring.
I know. He's honest about what's happening, but he doesn't let it take over his whole life. He focuses on the present moment, his connections with people, the things that make him happy.
And he even finds humor in it all, which is remarkable. He's basically saying, even though I'm dying, I'm still going to laugh, I'm still going to connect with people, I'm going to appreciate the beauty in life.
It's a powerful reminder that even when things are really hard, you still have a choice. You can choose your attitude, your perspective, how you experience everything.
Yeah. And his perspective on getting older is so refreshing, too. Like, society tells us we should be scared of aging, but Morrie sees it as growth, a chance to become wiser.
He actually says, aging is not just decay, it's growth.
Right.
What a shift in how we usually think about it. He's saying, embrace that wisdom and experience you gain as you get older. Don't just try to cling to your youth because that fades anyway.
And that fits with his whole message about being present. Why worry about the past or freak out about the future? The only moment you really have is now.
Right. Savor the present, appreciate the small things, find joy in those little moments that make up your life.
And Morrie had a lot to say about our culture being obsessed with youth and appearance. He challenges that whole idea of beauty being just about how you look. He wants us to love ourselves for who we are, inside and out.
He sees people chasing external validation, and it's like a distraction from what really matters. The depth of your character, the strength of your relationships, the good you do in the world.
And that's so relevant today, right? We're bombarded with images of perfect people and these unrealistic beauty standards. It's crazy.
Totally. Morrie is reminding us to define beauty for ourselves, find what makes you unique, and love that. Develop a self-love that doesn't depend on what other people think.
Exactly. And that goes back to his bigger message about rejecting those fake values that society tries to push on us. Find your own path based on what truly matters to you.
He wants you to question those assumptions and expectations that everyone just takes for granted, and then create a life that feels real and meaningful to you, even if other people don't get it.
It's about understanding that your worth isn't about your stuff. your status, or how you look. It's about your character, your compassion, and how you contribute to the world.
So then, how do you find meaning in a world that feels so chaotic and confusing? Morrie says true fulfillment doesn't come from having a lot of things or achieving a bunch of stuff. It comes from giving, from connecting with something bigger than yourself, from creating something that gives your life purpose.
He says, devote yourself to loving others, devote yourself to your community around you, and devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose and meaning. Like, that's a call to action right there, an invitation to live a life that really matters.
You have the power to make your life meaningful and fulfilling. It starts with figuring out your values, deciding what success means to you, and making choices that match your deepest beliefs.
And it's not about having all the answers or following some set path. Life's a journey, right? Morrie wants us to embrace the unknown, be open to new things, and learn from our mistakes.
Be curious, be humble, be willing to learn and grow.
And his advice about dealing with fear and uncertainty is so good. He says, face your fears, acknowledge that life is always changing. Find peace in the middle of the chaos. Remember that analogy he uses about the wave and the ocean.
Beautiful. We're all part of something bigger, our lives are connected, and even in the face of death, there's this sense of continuity and connection.
That can be really comforting, especially when you're going through tough times or feeling lost and alone. And it comes back to his big message about love, connection, and finding meaning even when life is hard.
Absolutely. And in the next part, we'll continue this conversation and talk about the lasting power of love and dive into Morrie's insights about how to create a life that feels truly fulfilling, even when there's loss and uncertainty. Welcome back. As we wrap up our deep dive into Tuesdays with Morrie, let's go back to one of the most thought-provoking questions Morrie asks. He asks, what would your perfect day look like? It's a simple question, but wow, it really makes you think about what truly matters to you.
Yeah, I love that question. And when Morrie describes his perfect day, it's not about like fancy things or going on big trips. It's about those simple pleasures, time with family, being in nature, doing things he enjoys, like dancing.
It's a good challenge for all of us.
Yeah.
Think about what brings you real happiness.
Yeah.
Strip away all those expectations from society, all the pressure, and get down to what makes you feel alive, what makes you feel fulfilled.
For sure. Happiness is often right there in those everyday moments, just being present, appreciating the beauty around you. What about you? What are those small things that bring you joy? What would your perfect day look like?
That's a good one to think about.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what Morrie says about living with intention, making choices that line up with what you value so you can create a life that feels good, a life that feels right for you.
And your perfect day doesn't have to be like anyone else's. It's personal, unique. It's about what you're passionate about, what you prioritize, what gives you that sense of peace and happiness.
Totally. Create a life that feels real and true to you. Don't try to live up to someone else's idea of success.
And one of the key parts of Morrie's perfect day is being with people he loves. He talks about how important it is to spend time with loved ones, make those relationships strong, and just appreciate that connection.
It reminds me of something else he says. He says that death ends a life, not a relationship. What a powerful statement. He's talking about how love is lasting, how the connections we make stay with us, even after someone's gone.
I find that really comforting, especially when you're dealing with grief and loss. It's like the love you shared, the memories, those things don't just disappear, they live on.
It makes you want to really cherish the time you have with the people you love, doesn't it? Tell them how much they mean to you and really put effort into those relationships while you can.
Absolutely. Thinking about Morrie's whole journey and everything he teaches, I'm really struck by how accepting he is of his situation. He doesn't get angry about being sick. He doesn't waste energy wishing things were different.
Right, he focuses on what he can control. His attitude, how he sees things, how he chooses to spend his remaining time.
And that's such an important lesson for everyone. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we react. And that can make a huge difference in how we experience life, even when things are really, really tough.
Morrie facing his illness with grace, with humor, with this deep appreciation for life. That's like a testament to how strong the human spirit can be and how powerful it is to choose love and acceptance over fear and bitterness.
It makes you think about your own life, your own struggles. Are you letting fear and negativity control you? Or are you choosing to focus on the good, to find beauty and meaning even when things are hard?
We all have to make that choice. And Morrie's story is like this powerful reminder that even in the face of loss and uncertainty, there's still so much to be grateful for, so much beauty to appreciate, and so much love to give and to receive.
It all comes back to Morrie's core message, right? That human connection is everything. We're not meant to go through life alone. We need each other for support, for love, for that sense of belonging.
His relationship with Mitch is such a good example of that. Their Tuesday meetings, they become this source of comfort and wisdom and connection for both of them. Morrie gets to share all his life lessons, to leave behind something meaningful. And Mitch rediscovers how important it is to connect with people. He starts to see life in a new way.
And it just goes to show you, even when you're facing death, relationships can bring so much joy, so much meaning, that sense that life goes on, that you're part of something bigger. And that's something you can cultivate in your own life, no matter how old you are or what your situation is.
Reach out to people,
Yeah.
build those connections, and be grateful for that human connection. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Tuesdays with Morrie, I want you to think about what really resonated with you. What are you taking away from this conversation? What insights or lessons have stuck with you?
For me, it's Morrie's focus on living with intention, choosing your values, and creating a life that feels real and meaningful for you. You have the power to shape your experiences, define success on your own terms, and build a life that brings you joy and fulfillment.
Yeah, and I'm really struck by his message about how powerful love is. It's that reminder that the connections we make, the memories we create, the love we share, those things last, even after we're gone.
It's a beautiful thought, a comforting thought, especially as we try to make sense of life and deal with the fact that we're all going to die someday.
Tuesdays with Morrie reminds you that we all have the potential to live a life with purpose and meaning and love. It's like a call to action, an invitation to embrace this moment, to nurture your relationships, and to make a difference in the world.
And if you're looking to explore these ideas even further, I recommend checking out lingopediamagazine.com. They have courses and ebooks on all kinds of topics: personal growth, philosophy, spirituality, all kinds of stuff.
That's awesome. A great way to keep learning and growing, inspired by Morrie's wisdom. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share this episode with your friends, and leave us a rating or comment. We always love hearing from you. Until next time, keep diving deep.